Hello and welcome to another episode of Unlocking the Writer Within. My name is Coach Kochek and I specialize in helping people tell their stories and express their thoughts, feelings, ambitions, and emotions in a captivating way through the mode of writing. Today I am really excited because when I was thinking of a topic, I was thinking of what is the question that I find I am asked most, or what is a pushback that I hear from a lot of people who have yet to start writing specifically their story. And the feedback is usually the same, which is, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to begin, which is a really great statement. And it would be easy for me to just say, well, just start. You don't know where to start? Just start. But today I'm going to give you a little bit more direction than that, even though that is a really great solution. Like if you don't know where to start, just start where you are. Just start. Just open up Microsoft Word and just start writing. But I wanted to give you 5 steps that you can use to help you in the starting process so that you're not just staring at a blinking cursor frustrated. So when we are talking about sitting down to start writing, and this could be used if you're writing a larger project like a book, if you're writing an ebook, if you're writing a blog post, even if you're writing on social media, these 5 steps can work for any mode and length of writing. So number 1, and this one might seem pretty self-explanatory, but you need to know what your topic is. So when you're sitting down to write, what is it that you are going to focus on in this writing section? What is it, if I read what you've written, can I walk away and in a phrase or a sentence or even a word, can I identify this is what the topic was of what I just read? When we're not clear with that, sometimes we can go all over the map with what we're talking about. Even from an academic standpoint, when I'm teaching my students in my intro to comp class, and we're talking about writing a 5-paragraph essay, like we hammer so hard on topic sentences, because what I tell them is if you don't know where you're going in a paragraph, you're going to have a whole bunch of disconnected sentences. You're going to confuse us, the reader, but you're also going to confuse you, the writer, because you're going to be writing and get lost in just a load of details. So the main thing that you should get clear on before you start, what is the topic that I am going to be attacking? Am I writing a section on financial freedom? Am I writing about reclaiming your identity? Am I writing about the fear of public speaking? What is the topic or the message that you are trying to send your audience with this writing, whether it be a small portion of writing or even if you're writing a book? What is this section of writing about? What topic am I tackling? And identify that first. Now we're going to do a whole nother episode on core message, because you need to know what your core message is, which is there is something in your life that has come over and over again to teach you 1 to 2 concepts of your life that you've become a master at. And it's usually our place of greatest struggle. But we'll talk about that in another episode. But for right now, just at the surface level, you need to know what is my topic for this writing passage. The second thing that you need to know is you need to know your audience. Every time I teach fiction writing, when I coach someone with fiction, you need to be so comfortable with your audience that they feel like they are your friends. Like you need to characterize them as specific as that, because when you're able to narrow down your audience and understand who they are and what they need, you can begin to fashion the language and you can begin to fashion the messages in a way that's going to really impact people. If I ask you who is your audience and you say everybody, well, that's too wide range. Of course, anyone can pick up what you read it and possibly get something from it. But there is a specific audience that you are specifically tasked to identify with and to send a message to. So you have to determine who is my audience specifically. Who am I drawn to? You might be writing for young adults. That might be your audience. There's something about who you are and your core message and the things that you've been through, and you find yourself always writing to young adults. Or your audience might be people who are in the beginning stages of retirement. That might be your audience. The language that I'm going to use for someone just coming into retirement as opposed to somebody who's a young adult is going to be entirely different. So you need to really know, who specifically am I writing to? And I talk about this with my fiction writers a lot, because when you're writing fiction, you are establishing characters that you need to be able to connect to, that you need to be able to know almost intimately, because then your writing can flow easier. When you start to really identify who is my audience, it makes writing that much more spiritual, because you stop writing to the sky, you stop writing to Apple computer, and now when you're writing, you see your audience. It's like, I'm writing, but I'm not just writing to this faceless audience. I can see who I'm writing to. I can feel it. I know them. And a lot of times our audience looks and acts a lot like us, because a lot of times the things that we're sharing with people, we've already been through. Our wisdom and experience is usually steeped in what we've already been through. That's where our knowledge comes from. So a lot of times finding your audience, it's going to look and sound very similar to you, and that's okay, because that's what we're usually attracting into our lives. So get really clear with your audience. So that's step number 2. So step number 1, what is your topic? Step number 2, who are you writing to? Step number 3 is still connected to step number 2. So step number 3, I want you to answer 2 questions about your audience. The first one is, what is your audience pain points? So where in the life of your audience are they struggling, specifically with this topic? So if I'm writing about financial literacy, what is the pain point for my audience? What do they need to hear? So that can be multiple things. So you want to identify, what are their pain points and how are they suffering based on this topic? What is something that your topic is going to meet the needs of these pain points? So what are their pain points? And then following that, what do they need to hear and read in order for those pain points to be solved or to be lessened? So you're identifying, where are they struggling the most, and what do they need to hear? What are the solutions that they need to hear? Okay, so that's step number 3. And that helps you, as you are presenting your information, to not just present one-sided information. Especially when you're telling a story, you want the story to take your audience on a journey. And part of that journey is taking them through difficulty, whether that be through your own story, or if you're just writing like a nonfiction blog to give them solutions. The excitement of the journey of writing is, I'm taking you through difficulty and making you feel the pain of that difficulty to then bring you to the solution so you feel the ease of that solution. That's the journey of writing. So you need to know, what is my audience struggling with? What's their pain points? And what do they need to hear in order to have that pain point solved? That's step number 3. Step number 4 is, how do you want your audience to feel while you are writing? What is the feeling word that you want them to get when you are writing? And when you understand that, once again, you'll know the tone that you need to take with your writing. So, and this can be multiple feeling words, right? So maybe you want to add a little bit of humor. Maybe that's your personality. And once again, use your personality to drive the answer to a lot of these questions. It's not going to be the same answer for each person. So how do you want your audience to feel as you are writing this? Do you want them to start off feeling laughing? Do you want to tell a funny story at the beginning, and then by the middle, do you want them to start feeling serious? Do you want it to start feeling more urgent? Do you want them to feel excited and hopeful? How do you want the journey of their emotions to feel? Because good writing doesn't just take somebody on an intellectual journey, a knowing journey, but it takes you on a feeling journey. So good writing understands that we are taking their emotions on a journey, right? Because that's really what keeps our interest, is this up and down ship, the will they, won't they, the what's going to happen with this writing. And you can do that really well, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. Nonfiction doesn't have to read like a textbook or a manual. Nonfiction can read just as good as fiction when you take this into account. When you realize that you are writing to a person, not a robot. When you realize that the person on the other side of this isn't just seeking to know better, they're seeking to do better, to live better, to be better. So then when you take that approach, there's a different level of passion that comes across in your writing. So how do you want them to feel? What is the emotional part of the journey? And the last step number 5, is what are you going to do to grab their attention at the beginning? I don't know if you remember, but from high school, one of the things that you were taught, you should have been taught, when you're writing an essay is you need to have an attention grabber. And there was a number of them that you can choose from, right? You can use a surprising statistic. You can start with a story. You can begin with a quote that's like really powerful and play off that quote. You can tell a historical story. The point is that most human beings struggle reading past the first paragraph. In fact, right now, they just documented that humans have I believe it's an 8-second attention span. It's less than a goldfish, which means that if I don't get your attention within the first 8 seconds, you're probably going to read the first paragraph and then be done with it. But when you understand that if you can grab the attention at the beginning, that your audience is more likely to follow you on the journey of your writing. And remember, your writing is a journey. You're taking them on a journey to whatever the end goal is, which is your topic, right? The topic is saying, this is the end goal. This is what I want them to feel. And this is what I want them to experience in this writing. So when you look at it that way, you have to decide, how do I want to get their attention? And when you decide how you want to get their attention, that gives you a good place to jumpstart. So if I know, and for me, I am very story driven. Facts tell, stories sell. People love stories. So pretty much 95% of my writing is going to be a story, some sort of story. The majority of the stories are going to be pulled from my own life, but I also pull in other stories. And I find that works well for me because that's how I learn best anyways. That's how I enjoy reading, is I like stories. For you, you might be driven by science. Science might be the thing that gets you going. So if you can take a scientific fact and you can bring it down into a really easy, digestible, practical presentation, that might be what draws your audience. So figure out, how am I going to start this? What is going to be my starting, jumping off point? And from there, once you begin with your attention getter, I'm telling you, once you solidify that and you go through the rest of these steps, you have all 5 of these steps, it will be so much easier for you to actually start writing, because you will be giving yourself a specific direction. And that's really the magic of writing, is getting really clear with not only what do I want to say, because I think that's where we get bogged down. What do I want to say? And how do I want to communicate it? And we become so selfish with our writing, but really writing is a gift because you get to share it. So because it's something that you can share, when you shift the focus to your audience, and now you're saying, how do I want you to feel? How do I want you to experience this? How do you need to hear this message in the best way? When it starts to become about a person, a face, the experience is totally different and it's more enriched, especially if you're writing something that you know people personally who have experienced this level of pain. So if I'm writing on how to get over a painful divorce, and I know someone personally who has gone through it, the writing experience can be me thinking of that person and what do they need to hear and how can I reach them? So now writing just goes from this intrinsic experience to now I'm giving it life. I'm giving it breath. I'm giving it a name and a face and a specific person that I'm writing to. And it becomes so much more of a spiritual experience. So if you start with these 5 steps, you will be on your way to not only getting started, but actually producing something. Do not let the excuse of, I don't know where to start, stop you one more day from writing, whether it be writing a paragraph, a sentence, or writing a full book. Go forth and do it. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Coach Kocek. This has been Unlocking the Writer Within, and I will see you on the next episode.